I believe that Polkadot could be so huge during this bull run, even though that's not financial advice. But if I take a look at its native token called DOT going to the price of $150 during this bull run, that wouldn't be surprising. And why would it be surprising at all? Because if you take a look at Polkadot, it's focused on a sector that really hasn't gained that mass retail hype yet. But eventually, I think it's going to come. And I think that during this bull run, man, that could really come in such a massive way. Because we all know that historically speaking, people do move in trends. They like DeFi projects, they like NFT projects, they like meme coins, they like Bitcoin, then they move on to other projects. It's only fair to assume that people eventually moving forward, they're going to focus on projects that are focused on something called interoperability. Now, I would like to state how, of course, Polkadot is not a small project by any means. However, in my opinion, it hasn't gained that like mainstream status yet. Like for instance, like a BNB or like a Solana, like an Ethereum or like a Bitcoin. But I think it could eventually have that moving forward, because if you take a look at lacking interoperability, this is a major issue. And I think this right here is really kind of limiting the growth of blockchain technology as of right now in terms of its adoption. However, even with that being said, what is this, right? What is lacking interoperability? That's to not be able to freely send data and value to each other. Now, why does this problem exist, primarily speaking, in the world of blockchains as of right now? Because there's a lot of networks, there's a lot of blockchains out there. But again, because by nature, many of them are independent of one another, they just simply can't do this. Again, freely send data and value to each other. You know, there's a lot of projects out there, they have a lot of fans, a lot of hype, but in order for the growth of the blockchain technology space to be amazing, there needs to be amazing interoperability. Because imagine if, let's say, I can't call someone because I'm using a different carrier, or let's say, I can't, let's say again, make a random phone call just because I'm using T-Mobile and then this other person's using AT&T. That'd be a disaster, right? But of course, this problem doesn't exist. However, in the world of blockchain technology, because it's not that developed yet, relatively speaking, in the grand scheme of things, this is still a problem. So of course, there needs to be a solution for that. And Polkadot, it's exactly focused on that. It's focused on connecting blockchains together. It's focused on interoperability. Now, again, this market hasn't really gained that massive retail hype yet, but I think eventually it's going to come in a massive way. And Polkadot, I think it's pretty much going to be the number one player in the space because it's the most established out there. The exposure is the best. You got to consider how when it comes to Polkadot's native token called DOT, it's listed in a bunch of major exchanges. Not to mention Polkadot has that reputation. And this really does matter because Polkadot has a very good perceived reputation. It's considered as a very reliable project, considered to be very solid, a project that's not focused on some random nonsense. Again, it has good reputation. So this is going to matter because, again, moving forward, people are going to need a solution for this. Again, something that lacks interoperability, and Polkadot could very well be a very large player in that space. Now, not to mention, when it comes to Polkadot, the community is very passionate in the sense that it kind of feels like a meme coin type of community, but then it's actually not. Now, this is not a disrespect or anything like that to Polkadot. If anything, I think that's a good thing because the way to take a look at Polkadot is that its native token called DOT, even despite the price pullback as of right now, and also despite the price pumping before, and also at times when the price was doing complete caca, when I was starting to talk about DOT back then, the price wasn't doing good whatsoever. In those three situations, again, caca, normal, pretty good. Polkadot, the community, it feels very neutral. And this is not a bad thing. It feels very neutral in the sense that they're bullish on Polkadot. They really do believe in its future no matter what. And they're not easily swayed by their emotions. Because you take a look at many other projects out there, if the price even dumps like 10 to 15 or let's say 20%, like 50% of the community just like is radio silent, or they just like disappear, or many of them panic sell, who knows. But when you take a look at Polkadot, that seems to not be the case, especially again, with the price performance of DOT, its native token, people aren't easily swayed by their emotions in that sense. And it makes sense, in my opinion, because Polkadot is actually a serious project. It's fundamentally amazing. And I think people primarily who are holding Polkadot's native token called DOT, they understand this, which is why they're not easily swayed. And that's why I think the community is fantastic. Now, not to mention, if you take a look at Polkadot, the added bonus that it has is that there's something called Kusama, which is the canary network to Polkadot. This quite essentially is a way for developers to test out projects under real economic conditions before eventually, in some cases, moving on to Polkadot afterwards. Now, the beauty about Kusama is that it really does funnel in a lot of projects because usually, other projects or other competitors out there, they want developers to jump straight on, to the whole thing, so to speak, right? They want them to say, okay, you believed in our thing. Okay, join straight away. But then that's a little bit of a weird vibe. It's like going to a car dealership and then they're saying, oh yeah, you can't test drive. You got to either buy it or you don't. That right there, in my opinion, would probably make 95% of the buyers just go away. You know what I mean? While other projects out there, they have this type of mentality. Polkadot, they understand that this is pointless. There's no need for that. Projects that want to launch on Polkadot, they're going to launch usually on Kusama first. They can test out the project. If they like it, they can move on to Polkadot. If they like Kusama, they can stay there. But you know what? If they don't like it either way, then they can leave. It doesn't matter because, of course, building on Kusama is way cheaper. It's easier to make changes on. So it's kind of like not a lose-lose type of situation. It's like, you know what? If things do work out well, it's a win-win type of situation. It's not even that expensive anyways, right? So it's not even that much risk. But then if it works out well, then it works out well. So that's how amazing Polkadot is. They have a very good mentality. I love the team. Not to mention, Polkadot's native token called DOT has a very good staking ratio. There's a bunch of holders. It's holding very strong. So anyway, take a look at it. I do believe that Polkadot is one of these dynamic players that is massive, but then is not really considered a giant yet. But I think it's a matter of time because even if you take a look at strictly during this bull run, according to Charles Hoskinson, who not only is the co-founder of Ethereum, but the founder of Cardano, he does predict that in the next 1-2 years, he could very well see Bitcoin reaching anywhere between the price of $250,000 all the way up to $500,000. Now, let's say $500,000 is way too ridiculous and optimistic, which I do believe it is, but you never know. But let's say it even just reaches $250,000. At that point, DOT at the price of $150, I don't see why not. Now, again, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time, but I think better days are ahead. And not to mention, you take a look at if DOT were to go to the price of $150, at that point, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $230 billion, which is still over $320 billion less than Ethereum's all-time high market cap. So I don't think it's too much to ask for. I get it. $150 is around a 21x from here. So it's not going to be the best upside, but considering how massive Polkadot is as a project, relatively speaking, it's not like a dinosaur, like a BNB or Solana, but, it's a pretty, relatively speaking, massive project. Let's say potentially doing, or hypothetically, let's say doing a 20x from here around that on top of what it's already done doesn't seem so bad in my opinion. Now, historically speaking as well, we know that usually as a worst case scenario, altcoins, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. Again, as a worst case, the last Bitcoin halving event happened back in April. So 18 months from then is actually around October of 2025. If we take that into consideration, I think 2025 could very well be a time to shine for many altcoins, including DOT, but it's just a waiting game. I do believe that Polkadot could be so huge during this war, and again, DOT at the price of $150, that wouldn't surprise me whatsoever, which is why I'm still accumulating DOT, anytime an income, acquire, hold, and I'm waiting, that's it, because I believe in its future. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's Molly the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.